I have got my shirt on. I am ready to talk finances. You need to understand how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, and how much money you're going to potentially make. So in this little 2-part finance mini series, I am going to split it up into your theory and your practical. So in the theory, I am going to talk about what it is that goes into the financial side of your business plan, and then in our practical, we are actually going to go through some of these tables so that you can see it like in real life. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Taddy G, and on this channel I like to share what it's truly like to run a clothing brand, as well as trying to drop tips, tricks, gems, and all of that good stuff. So in terms of my business plan, there are 4 main things that I like to look at and I like to cover to ensure that I'm producing something that is realistic and is reflective of my brand, and I've included absolutely everything I feel like I need to include. So I like to look at my sales forecast, my personal budget, my cash flow forecast, and my costs. Don't worry, I'm going to go through exactly what each one of these elements actually mean. We can call this video the theory of finance. By the way, just a quick disclaimer, I am in no way, shape or form like a finance girly. That's not even close to an industry that I've dabbled in at all. However, I do feel like I do know a thing or two because I have written business plans. So let's talk about what a sales forecast is. So a sales forecast is typically a table, and it shows how many sales you are predicting to make over a period of a year typically. So that's why it's called sales forecast. You're like, you know, when the weatherman is talking about the weather, it's a forecast. They are forecasting the weather. So when I talk about predicting how many sales you're going to make over the year, this is what you would consider your business's financial year. Now, of course, predicting how many sales you are going to make can be really difficult. Like, you may be in a position where you don't actually know where to start. Like, what do you mean predict how many sales I'm going to make? The best thing I would say is to plan for the worst possible outcome. With an industry such as the clothing industry, there are external factors that can affect what months you're going to make more money and what months you're going to make less money. So for example, if you are a brand that is selling like winter jackets, it's likely that you are going to make more sales leading up to the winter months. Or say if you are a brand that specializes in Christmas jumpers, you are going to have a peak in the Christmas period. So during the Christmas period, seasons definitely affect sales, especially in the clothing industry. Now let me think of a different industry. Cars. If you're selling cars, I feel like it's more likely that people are going to want to purchase their car in September when the new plates come out, or in March when the other plates come out, I think. So these are the sorts of things that you need to start thinking about when you're putting together your sales forecast. So the way you would present this in your table would be that, okay, I sell jackets in September, I'm going to have a peak of people purchasing jackets. So to actually start putting together your sales forecast, you're gonna want to need to know what month you intend on starting your business. You can say to yourself, okay, I plan to launch my clothing brand in September. So obviously from September onwards, that's when you're gonna start making sales. Then you're obviously gonna want to know or have an idea of how many sales you're going to make month to month. So you can even break this down to weekly and then, you know, times it up so that it reflects as monthly. But this is the 2 main bits of information that you're going to want to know. Using this information, you are then going to be able to work out how much money you are going to be making month to month. And this is what is referred to as your turnover. One thing I'm going to need you to have ticking at the back of your mind is, how much money do I need to spend to make these sales? So I am talking garment production, Shopify fees, email marketing fees if you're doing that, pop-ups if you're selling at pop-ups. These are things that you're gonna want to have ticking at the back of your mind, but I am going to show you how you're then going to present that as like a figure. So next we're going to look at our personal budget. So this is the amount of money that you are going to need to live like comfortably, maybe not necessarily like lavishly, but comfortably at the very least. I feel like this is something that is often neglected because it's like make money, but then we're not looking at like, you know, how much of this money do I actually need to spend on myself. I feel like sometimes we'll make money in business and just take that money out and start using it, but really the money that we are taking out should only be money that we need to survive because it's grind season. But if you do have like a part-time job or you're still working your 9 to 5, then this is perhaps something that you don't need to worry about as much, but there will come a time where you need to commit to doing this business full time. So you do need to sort of have an idea of how much money you need to survive. So when I'm talking about personal budget, I am talking about, you know, how much are your living expenses? So how much is your rent or your mortgage? How much are your household bills, your phone bill, your car expenses, car insurance, car service, all of that sort of stuff, your fuel? Do you go to the gym? How much is that subscription or membership fee? Your food, how much food are you purchasing? Your clothes, what clothes are you purchasing? And you know, you can have a bit for entertainment because yeah, it's grind season, but we still need to, you know, have sort of like a life. So you can definitely have a budget for entertainment. So your personal budget is definitely something that you do need to think about, and the way I would do it is to populate the costs monthly and then have that as a total. So for example, if your rent is £600 a month, if your car is like 100, everything else is like 200, obviously that's going to add up to 900. That's going to be your monthly budget, like your monthly personal budget, and obviously you're going to need to be making enough money to cover that, as well as like your costs and your overheads. All of this gets presented quite nicely, quite neatly in our cash flow forecast, which brings us nicely onto what a cash flow forecast actually is. Now, a cash flow forecast is essentially going to show you how much money you are actually making. So when you put together your sales forecast, it's only showing you your turnover. It's not including like your costs, your overheads, your personal budget. It doesn't take into account all of those different elements. But your cash flow forecast, that one shows you how much money you are actually making. So similar to your sales forecast, this is done over a period of your financial year. Some of the things you need to think about is the fact that some costs might not be like monthly reoccurring. It might be that at the start of the year or the start of your financial year, you have like a massive outlay because you're purchasing your stock, you're purchasing your inventory. So that's going to be like a couple like thousand that's going to come out at the start. And then from that point, it's almost like you're trying to work your way out of that red, because obviously like you spent money, it's now time to sort of make that money back. And don't be alarmed if in your cash flow forecasts you're seeing like loads of minuses, because there's like this statistic, I don't know how far true it is, but it's almost like it takes like 3 years or something, or a year or something, for your business to actually become profitable. So don't be alarmed if in your cash flow forecast you're seeing minuses, and you use the figures from your sales forecast to produce your cash flow forecast. So you're using figures from your sales forecast, you're using your personal budget, and you're using your costs, which we're going to cover in the final section of this video. A nice thing about the cash flow forecast is that you're going to be seeing whether you're actually breaking even. There's nothing worse than thinking that you're making money when you're not, or thinking that you're not making money when you are. So the great thing about making a cash flow forecast is the fact that you might have this great idea for your business, but when you actually start now putting pen to paper, maybe it's not going to make money, or maybe your pricing, whatever you're selling your product at, is actually too low. So actually predicting and creating this cash flow forecast, which is a prediction, will allow you to make fully informed decisions on certain things that you might have to do, say if you're not actually making any money, if that makes sense. When your business actually then goes into business, you do then need to make a real cash flow like table. So like say if in January just gone, you're like, okay, January's just gone, I've made sales of £1,000 and the amount of money I've spent in January is 850, for example. So maybe January you spent a bunch of money on inventory and like your subscriptions and stuff. You can then say, okay, so in January I actually made a a profit of 150. But then it means in February, you no longer have that outlay of like stock. And if you keep your sales like consistent, in February, you are going to have a little bit more for profit. So then you can use your cash flow forecast that you made before you even started your business and start comparing and seeing if your predictions were actually like accurate. And there's nothing better than making predictions that ended up being a lot less than what you end up making. Like, that's the position that we all want to be in. But don't worry, in the practical, we are going to go through this table in a lot more detail, and I'm quite nervous because like I don't like Excel, but I'm doing it for you guys. So lastly, let's look at costs. I feel like I probably should have spoken about costs before I spoke about the cash flow, but it's fine. For this section, you are going to need to take a look at your business's overall costs, like all of the costs associated with your business. And this will even include your inventory and any like stock that you're purchasing for your business. It includes that as well. So say you're purchasing 100 hoodies for your clothing brand, you need to note how much those 100 hoodies are going to cost. And also you need to have an idea of when you're going to do a restock. So maybe you're going to do like biannual restocks or quarterly restocks. You need to like bear that in mind. So at least like now when you're putting together your cash flow forecast, say if it's like January to December, you know that you're going to have an outlay of stock in January, April, August, and somewhere there. you get my drift. Like, my maths wasn't mathsing right there, but you would know that you are going to have to outlay stock in certain months, and you would present this in your cash flow forecast. And when I'm talking purchasing hoodies, I'm not just talking about the cost price of the hoodies. You need to include the shipping, duty, if you're paying duty. Don't miss out anything. Other costs can be like purchasing your packaging, your thank you cards, printing paper. Like, think about absolutely everything that's going to go into your business and might be like a regular occurrence. Make sure you are including all of that in your costs table. Other things to note will be things like your Shopify subscription, if you're using Shopify to host your website, and insurances you're paying. So for example, I have like business insurance that I pay monthly. I've mentioned packaging and stock expenses, but it's also things like your initial samples. So that sampling process, it has a cost. Make sure you're including that in your costs table. It's also important to have a good idea of how much your sampling process actually costs you, because like you might say to yourself, okay, in 6 months time I'm gonna want to release like a new collection. You're gonna need to include them sample prices in your cash flow forecast. Travel, bank charges, and Shopify fees. I know to have like a Barclays business account, you do have to pay like bank charges. I cannot for the life of me remember how much it is. Shopify fees, obviously Shopify takes a percentage of sales that are processed through their websites. You have to take that into consideration. You need to count every single penny. Every penny counts. Email marketing, if you're paying for that, how much you're going to spend on photo shoots, putting your website together, are you paying a graphic designer? All of these costs need to go into your costs table. Basically, it's just going to be like 3 columns. You're going to have what it is that you're paying for, so like Shopify, stock, whatever. Then you're going to have in your middle column how frequently this cost occurs. So Shopify would be monthly, your stock might be annually or biannually, your photo shoots might be quarterly. So note how often those outlays are going to happen. And then in your final column, you're going to have like the cost of whatever it is. So for example, Shopify, £25 a month, you're going to have that down as £25, for example. So now when you're making your cash flow forecast, you know that every month you're going to have like a line that says Shopify, and it's going to be 25 times 12 for the whole year, if that makes sense. So that's essentially the theory behind your finances when it comes to putting together your business plan and actually running your business effectively, understanding your money and knowing what's potentially going to be going out and coming in. In part 2, we are going to now get into the nitty-gritty, the practical, and we're going to look at some of these tables and what I would put in these tables so that you can actually see a good full-on example of what it is that I am talking about. So I will definitely be looking forward to catching you in part 2. As for this video, it is done. I hope you have enjoyed it and you've learned a thing or two. Please don't forget to subscribe subscribe to my channel, share this video if you will, and I will catch you in my very next video.